r/AskReddit by Reddit Stories. What is the dumbest thing you have ever done while high? I walked into a fast food place, made a huge order. I got all my food and drink, sat my food on a table and went to use the bathroom. Then I walked out and went home and didn't realize what I did for at least 2 hours. You had the munchies and forgot your food? Exactly how much pot did you smoke? I had something similar happen to me. Got a new strain that hit really hard and made me hungry, so I decided to order pizza. Pizza arrived and I went to the sink to wash my hands and grab plates, but on the way to the kitchen I pulled my phone out to check for texts. I turned around and went back to my couch empty-handed. I sat there for about an hour watching Futurama before noticing how insanely hungry I was. I totally forgot about the pizza sitting on my counter, but I did find the coupon sheet it came with, so I ordered more pizza. Who the fuck is ballsy enough to leave their food unattended in a public place? You're probably lucky you forgot about it. Using my phone as a light to look for my phone. I've done this sober. More than once. There's a Zen koan, metaphorical puzzle, about a monk who goes out at night looking for a lantern, not realizing that it's the light he's carrying. Stood in an elevator for about 5 minutes before realizing that no one pressed any buttons. But was it actually only like 5 seconds, but felt like 5 minutes because time doesn't work right when high. Turn the TV down to taste food easier. I have done this sober a couple of times, tbh. I have also put on my glasses when I couldn't hear someone very well. With TV and food, it's all about the volume. Edit. Some words. There are people who have dedicated their careers to how sound affects enjoyment of food. Loud noises make food less enjoyable. Makes sense to me. If the noise is too loud, it's drowning out other senses. I think that's true for most of the senses too. I threw my socks in the trash instead of the laundry basket. Twice. They weren't even in the same room. That's okay, I threw them in the toilet once. Yo, I do this all the time if it's my first bowl of the day after a long day at work. I always toss my socks in the bin and then I'm like, oh fuck, and toss me in my laundry basket. I once went into an old railway tunnel in a small town in the UK to have an adventurous smoke. It was huge and deep underground and ran for at least 5 miles. We climbed in and explored, and were greeted by a farmer with a rifle on our way out who claimed it was private property, prone to caving in, and covered in dangerous mold. The idea of being caved into a deep underground tunnel where no one would ever find us was terrifying. Don't explore underground tunnels unless you know they are safe. I walked through the 1-1.5 mile tunnel in Peebles, Scotland whilst sober, and it was pretty intense. Can't imagine doing it high in your situation. Snapped my elbow whilst trying to backflip. Quite a bad break. Lost full use of that arm forever and regularly in pain as a result. Farewell to arm. Jesus dude. Holy shit dude, I snapped my arm in half in 2015 falling off the side of a road in a mountain. Once I got my bearings straight, I had to literally hold my forearm with my other hand until the ambulance showed up. They were able to bolt it back together though, and I got like 98% mobility back. I'm sorry you lot, full use forever. In the middle of a board game, I stood up to get another beer, a few feet from the game table, but had to remove the gallon of milk from the fridge to get the beer. I picked up the jug, and matched eyes with a non-high friend of mine, for some reason thought I'd make him laugh by pretending to pour the milk on my head. The cap was not on the jug properly. My friend, watch as stoned me, took a gallon of milk and poured it on my head. Everyone was just as confused as I was, as there was no rhyme or reason for any of it. My explanation for why it happened wasn't very valid. I recognize it, bro. That's impressively high, my friend. This one made me laugh the hardest. I was scrolling through my phone settings to find some music. That's not as funny as your comments, but that thing confused me. I once tried to call a friend of mine while I was on mushrooms. I just kept pressing 7 for a few minutes, thinking that is how it works. Poured myself a nice bowl of Coca-Cola. I get fairly paranoid when I smoke. Once I was smoking with a coworker and his roommate and I realized I was very high. My first thought was I can't let them know I am high. I realized shortly after that they were also high, so thusly I couldn't let them know how high I was. The logical course of action was to walk an hour home. On the way home I was going to stop at Tim Hortons and get a coffee to try and balance me out. As I approached the door I realized they may notice I am high and inform the authorities, so I left. I saw a cop car go past and decided they were looking for me. I go to my bed and lay down mentally preparing for my life as a fugitive. Only to realize I am in my late 20s, pot is legal in Canada, and the people I was smoking with wouldn't have cared that I was super high. My roommate's girlfriend also gets paranoid when she smokes. She doesn't smoke anymore because it was so bad and frequent. Listening to music with headphones for an hour before realizing the headphones weren't even plugged in and I was just blasting it through my phone. Please tell me this was in public. This was a fear I had during an acid trip. Decided to drop a few tabs and have a nice stroll through the city. It was Saturday, so the city was bustling and I wanted some tunes to drown out the noise a bit. Obviously the music sounded wicked weird, so I was constantly checking to make sure the headphones were plugged in. Kept glancing at everyone else to make sure I wasn't drawing any extra attention to myself. I was fine. Ended up following the sun to the city garden and laying in the grass, watching the birds fly by and the grass move with life. Laying in the grass is common practice, LOL, don't worry. Did get a few weird looks for just laying in the grass without a picnic blanket, though. On vacation in California with my brothers and some friends and we were all helping make dinner. It was some bomb as bacon mac and cheese. My job was to chop up the bacon. Well, I ate 2 edibles at the beginning of dinner prep and by the time the bacon was done in the oven, I was the one fully baked. I spent an eternity tearing the bacon into tiny pieces by hand and complaining how hot it was the whole time. Only when I was finished did somebody suggest I should have used a knife. Saw a huge spider on the wall and decided the best way to kill it was with a straight leg lunge. I put a gigantic hole in the wall, and I have no idea what happened to the spider. The spider probably crawled up your leg and went inside your poopy hole. I ordered 2 pigs off a Craigslist after a back operation when I was still out of it. What did you do with the pigs? I was in my car hotboxing alone at like 2 a.m. in a wooded parking area. All of a sudden I thought a crazy person was vigorously shaking my car for 5 seconds. Got out and no one was around. I was seriously questioning my sanity at that point. Didn't realize until I saw the news next morning that there was a 5.0 earthquake overnight and that I didn't smoke laced bath salts. This made me cackle. Just imaging your confused face as you walk around the car. When I lived in CA I would get faked out by this while high a few times. I'd feel shaking and thought it was just drugs until the shaking got harder. My friend and I were into cooking high, for a while. Got high, cooked ourselves the biggest meal possible, and eat with a good movie. Well, one evening we decide to go for the biggest lasagna ever. Everything is super tasty, we layer the shit out of that lasagna in a deep ceramic dish, is that the term? In the oven for some minutes, very high temperature. Something like 40 minutes and a joint later, I go to the oven, smell the tasty deliciousness emanating from it, and it seems to be perfect. I put an oven mitt on my left hand, open the oven door, and full on grab the dish with my right hand. My first thought, don't let go and break it, put it down calmly. I mean, I could have let go immediately and broken the dish. That would have been annoying but not painful. Or set the dish back on the tray and switched hand. You know, small burn, you're an idiot, live on. But no. I decided to keep that lava-hot dish in my unprotected hand for a few seconds. And I could, too. If I pull the same stunt while sober, I'm guessing I'll just let go by reflex, without even thinking. But no, I could clearly think, okay, don't break anything, set it down on the counter and get some water. Dumbass. I earned the biggest visible scar I'll, hopefully, ever have, a shitload of pain for a few days, and the best oven-related story in my life. Not the best weed-related story though, but that's for another thread. TLDR, cooking a lasagna, I put an oven mitt on my left hand, grabbed the dish with my right hand, and decided not to risk breaking the meal and hold onto it. How many oven-related stories do you have that you can select the best one? Yeah, but how was the lasagna? Worth it? My friend and I were high while switching classes in high school. I started moving my arms in a circular motion and I told her I feel like a train. She walked behind me, doing the same thing, and we were both whispering chugga chugga chugga. Coincidentally, this was also the last time I smoked. Good times. This is so cute. It sounds dumb until you really start to think about it, but the first time I did shrooms I did quite a bit, so I was tripping for almost 15 hours straight. In the middle of it I went on a rant about doors and walls. I went into great detail about how I thought that walls were a thing of the past and got upset that we haven't converted all walls to doors by now. You want a wall? Close the door, you decide that you're tired of that one wall? Open the door. And I bet it just made so much sense at the time. I'm with you on this one. Fuck walls. Kinda like the opposite of the real fake doors guy in Rick and Morty. Just real doors, everywhere. Believed in school, went to college, got a career. Never again. Damn, how long did that high last? Woke up one morning after a party, switched on the PS4 to realized I spent €350 on games on the PS Store. Shitty games. Really shitty ones. Which games? We need to know. Back in the day I used to read a lot. This was before phones were very good. Now I read Reddit a lot instead of books. I had been reading for a while that day and was over halfway through this great paperback novel. I went to get something from the kitchen and when I came back I couldn't find my book. I looked everywhere and just couldn't find it. I was so bummed, it didn't turn up that day. It was like 3 days later that I went to the kitchen for some ice and opened the freezer. There was my book in the freezer door, face with hand over mouth thinking face. Got a cocktail bar manager pregnant. Oh, I think you win, sir. Hey, I did that too while high. Not a cocktail bar manager, a lazy dependa. Hey, I wasn't always with your dad. Back when I was in college I took this science fiction literature class and one day our professor said she was going to do a night screening of Moon if we wanted to come watch. I had heard great things about that movie, so I definitely wanted to go, and so did my girlfriend and a couple of other friends of mine. Before going my friends and I were smoking a bunch of weed and watching Futurama. The last episode we watched was the late Philip J. Fry, which include the scene in the opening of Bender singing. That song got really stuck in my head and I kept singing it to myself throughout the episode. We smoke one last spliff and head to go see the movie. The screening was going TKB in this small classroom auditorium and we sat kind of near the middle to get the best view. There were some technical issues that the teacher couldn't figure out and there were like 3 other kids from my class trying to help her out with it. I was so stoned and really bored, so I leaned over to my girlfriend and started quietly singing Hambone to her. Or so I thought. She slugs me in the arm and tells me to be quiet because everyone is looking. Apparently, I was singing it much louder than I thought I was and everyone was indeed looking at us and all I could do was laugh. My girlfriend struggled to hold back her laughter too now and my buddies that had come with us joined in. Now it was super obvious that we were all completely stoned, laughing at pretty much nothing. I laughed. That's a great story. My time to shine. I tried to convince myself that I could ride a bike without touching the pedals. Ended up catching my foot in the gears and getting an 1-inch long cut on my ankle. Would not recommend. Ouch, I felt it. Thought I lost my 3D vision, so walked around touching things to make sure they were still 3D. I want what you had that day. I once stopped at a stop sign and zoned out waiting for it to turn green. Come on. Why you gotta go and drive while high? If you've got dough for bud, you've got dough for a taxi too. This is radical. Have done this sober. To be fair, I've done this completely sober. I came up with an awesome rap song. So I wrote that shit down, son. When I found it the next morning, it was so stupid that I burned the paper. And over the next few days, I contemplated how stupid someone would have to be in order to think that was good in any way. Let alone awesome enough to actually write down. And that was one of a few things that led to me quitting drugs altogether, almost 25 years ago now. A chart-topping parody rap song was lost that day. So one time, and honestly I'm almost 30 and this was about 2 years ago. I was getting high and my buddy passed me his one-hitter. Now I'm a lightweight, I have been all my life. On top of that I hate dabs, they give me panic attacks. My buddy on the other hand only likes dabs and just thought I was being a bitch, so he mixed his weed and wax and loaded it in the one-hitter. About 30 minutes into that Conan World Traveler show, time stopped working. It was if my mind was moving in space and time while my body was delayed. Instant full panic attack comes rushing in. I stand up and look at my friend and say, I'm dying, I need to go to the hospital. Now I should add my son and fiancé are asleep at this point, and I run into her room while she's sleeping and say, I'm going to the hospital, I'm dying. I run out of the house and keep yelling, come on, I need to go to the hospital, I'm dying. We get in the car and as he's driving to the hospital he says, wow, I didn't believe you, dabs really do give you panic attacks. The realization that it was the wax and not a heart attack hits me. I start to calm down right as we get to the hospital. I ask him to drive around the city because it's calming while I calm down. I get back home and watch the show We Bare Bears until 2 a.m. and finally get some sleep. That was one of the dumbest nights I had stoned. Dabs are the reason I quit smoking. Reading this gave me anxiety. Hopefully it's all ended well, bro. I get this exact same reaction when I smoke too much. Trying to text my brother where my phone was. 4 of us walked through the local McDonald's drive-thru in our invisible car, we got refused. The funny part was when my M8 went inside after to get his food, he said to the server that we just got refuse in our invisible car, and she went and got the manager, took a couple of minutes for they to notice what he was actually complaining about. After dental appointment I was still high as shit due to the pills I got. Wasn't sure if I were allowed to ride the bus because of the appointment, so I walked the 5 miles home. Smoked dog shit. Long story, and I wished it was a joke but really happened. A couple of guys in high school smoked a callus on top of a bowl. Came from one of their heels. I was half asleep on a girl's bed and her 8-year-old sister walks in and asks, "How high are y'all?" So I leaned up, looked her dead in the eye, and said, "Wrong. It's high, how are you?" My buddy asked me to help him and his mom move some shit around in their house after he smoked me up. I tried to take an AC unit out of the window without opening the window. I struggled with it for literally 20 seconds right in front of his mom until she came over and opened the window for me. I couldn't do anything but smile and says thanks. That's a good one. Went pee in a crowded women's restroom and didn't realize it until halfway through peeing. When I was in college and had just started smoking weed, I decided I wanted to make some pot brownies, but I didn't know how and didn't want to Google it because I was paranoid, correctly, that the government monitors everyone's web searches. So I took some brownie mix, and sprinkled in some ground up weed. That is not how you make pot brownies, that is how you waste perfectly good weed and brownie mix. I made it a challenge to go an entire transatlantic flight without taking a piss. Never suppress urination while that high in the air. Lost my cell phone, while I was talking on it. To be fair, I've done this while sober. I had a round wooden cutting board and because of the shape, I confused it for my ceramic pizza stone. Didn't realize it until I smelled something burning from the living room and then I was like, wait, was that wood? That I put that pizza on. I was at a friend's house hanging out by the pool on an especially hot summer day and I forgot anyone else was there and took my top off because I didn't want tan lines. My mom was high and was writing a graduation card for someone and wrote many best wishes. Several grams of mushrooms in. I go to use the bathroom. In my home the bathroom was by the back door just off the kitchen, the door to the bathroom facing the back door and the mirror on the opposite side of the wall to the living room. This is important to the story. I pee and go to leave the washroom and turn to see the door melting. My wisdom tells me that I should use the other door, the one in the mirror, so I turn to the guy in the mirror and ask to use his door. He politely refuses. I inform him of my logic in that his door goes straight to the living room and my door is melting. Again he refuses. You can't go through this door, he says. I plead with him trying to make my point from logic and this goes on for several minutes. I then finally turn to the melting door with a fine then and as I open the door I realize my mistake. Making my way into the living room my family and friends are laughing hysterically as they were listening to me argue with myself in the mirror. There is no way I could shroom anywhere near my family. Unless, perhaps they were on shrooms too. Actually, that would make it more weird. Did your family know that you were tripping? A really similar thing happened to me on my first time on shrooms. When my friends found me I was in the bathroom in the dark and had been talking to myself for probably a good 10 minutes. Because of the mirrors in there and a few random lights in the dark, it started to look like I was in one of those infinity mirrors and just floating in space. I remember chanting over and over again, I want a refund, referring to the shrooms because I didn't expect them to be that intense. I went to the bathroom of a pub and snorted some coke. When I came out the landlady said, "You are barred." I said, "Why?" in denial of anything wrong. She said, "No drugs allowed in here." I said, "I don't know what you mean." She said, "Take that note out of your nose and say that." I've written out 2 good stories and then realized how utterly incriminating they are. Went to call Domino's but opened the calculator app on my phone. Pedaled on a stationary bike for hours, actually thought I was getting somewhere. My legs were hella sore the next day. Multiple times, go to gas station, walk over to attendant, pay for gas, walk back, get in the car and drive off just to realize 30 minutes later, why am I on empty again? So fucking fuzz, fuck. I've done this too. This is funny. I'd appreciate it if you liked and subscribed.